Commander, I need your help. I've requested reinforcements in Australia. Kane refused. I've seen the damage reports on Temple Prime. It's a lost cause, we both know that. This base, these forces, this is the heart of our entire operation. They can still be saved if we act.
You can thank me for that one. Didn't I tell you Killian couldn't be trusted? Can't believe she's questioning King. He obviously had damn good reason for holding those forces back. Whatever. It's good to be back in Sarajevo. But we got serious work to do. First up, you gotta escort those weapon components you recovered back to Temple Prime. Then give Kane some time to build that sucker. And hey, do me a favor. When this all works out, tell Kane who drew up the plan. Maybe he'll let me out of this tent. I can flank you on your next mission. Wouldn't that be sweet?
Be clear of
Incoming
mine.
transmission.
As it
The
happens.
liquid Tiberium.
Tank
New
division.
bonus objective.
What's to
Enemy
guard the
units
tanks
sighted.
well?
Enemy base.
Welcome back, Commander. So I may have had to replay this a bunch of times, so some messages may be cut off accidentally. I think that was another one of those cutscenes that really exemplifies why Nod frequently has better characters, or maybe not better necessarily, but characters that are more approachable or likable. And it seems entirely around the fact that, well, they give them space to talk, and it's not so much about procedure and normal military lingo, I guess.
Tides will not yield. Ashes will fall.
There's also a strange way that it's introduced in that the game says that Temple Prime has been under attack and all that, but
The tides will
not really. I may have the timeline a little off, but this is kind of why we're playing the Nod one first rather than the GDI version. There's just a sequence of events that we won't see until later that implies that this should be first. It makes sense that GDI may have been building up a base in order to attack Temple Prime, and this is just Kane finally unleashing his plan around his old HQ. Again, some of these cut-ins will be a little abrupt. That's just how I have to cut them while reloading and saving and so on.
Everything is prepared. Blame tank.
This mission can be kinda tight on a lot of aspects, actually. First and foremost, the AI takes control of the base. It builds up a bunch of stuff. As far as I understand it, or presume anyways, it doesn't use up the resources you would get once you take over. Does that mean it's better to leave the AI build a whole bunch before you take over? I don't really know. You also have to be careful, because if you bring the liquid Tiberium truck too close, then the AI takes it over and proceeds to the next segment.
Objective complete. Establishing video uplink.
You recovered the Tiberium device. Excellent. Now, you must defend the temple and drive off those GDI infidels while I assemble the device.
Unit under attack. Incoming transmission. Commander, Kane has given you control of Temple Prime's defenses. Protect Temple Prime by defeating the GDI forces assaulting from the southwest. Unit lost. Bonus objective complete. Intelligence data updated.
As you might imagine, things are pretty tense from the get-go.
Building.
Not only do you not have all your tech in place, but you immediately become our victim of attacks. And you don't really have the troops or defenses in place, so you really have to get going on how everything is to be placed. Your money also dries out really quickly. You only have one refinery, you only have one harvester, and considering the amount of money you need to dump into defenses right away, it can get tight really quickly.
No match for the Scorpion. Attack! We got this handled. Now they die.
Under attack. New construction options. Building. Units lost. Training. Unit promoted. Training.
It's also quite obvious just from how the map is built that you're going to be attacked in several different directions. Now, for the most point, you don't really have to worry too much about the extreme sides. You already have some forces up on the high ground, on the top left corner, so that gives you a little bit of advance notice. But you do have to worry about the center channels and definitely the southeast. Not because these attacks are particularly strong, it's just that the southeast one might catch you off guard, and next thing you know, you've lost a bunch of buildings because you're too focused on defending in the center or making attacks yourself, and so on. I haven't really noticed any particular reason to attack very quickly as well. Sure, the AI will continuously build units and whatnot, but you don't really feel like you're under a time pressure necessarily. One thing I ignored the first time around I played this was air defenses, and trust me, those will just show up at the worst of times and make life difficult.
Under attack. Construction.
To make things a little more annoying, you are going to be under attack from a new defensive structure. We're not going to see it for a little bit, just because it's not, I don't want to say it's not relevant, but we're just not going to see it for a little bit. So I will admit from saying what it is, but it does do a lot of damage. It basically kills vehicles in one hit. I think the Avatar Walker is one of those few exceptions. We also saw that it travels in a straight line and seems to penetrate. So again, be very careful as to how you set about your attacks. Now, thankfully for me, I had just enough units to destroy the enemy construction yard, which is going to make this a lot easier. They're already unpowered for the most part, so I don't quite have to worry too much about what they can do. Obviously, this doesn't mean that they're free to be attacked, and they will still send units your way, but it's far less of a worry than it was, say, 5 minutes ago. Now, there's a couple of ways to play this. Once you destroy this base, you have kind of a dilemma on your hands. First and foremost, there are a lot of defenses that you have to go up against. They will build juggernauts and mammoth tanks, and even just rocket soldiers that they can constantly just pump out of their barracks is something to be worried about. Namely here where I'm going to be losing several Venom aircraft when realistically I should be a little bit more careful about this. I was focused more on destroying their refinery though. I really wanted to make sure that they weren't going to get any more money, so that even if my attack here doesn't work, I have something to work with later on. Now, once you destroy this base, like I said, you have a bit of a dilemma on your hands. You can either try to move units back to your base, or you can move them to the southwest corner. Honestly speaking, you should just send them into that corner, and you'll see why fairly shortly. It's not a guarantee that it'll protect your units or really work at all, but it's better than not doing it, essentially. Now, I forget if there's even a requirement for this to be under a time limit. I forget the exact machinations behind it, but essentially at some point you will trigger an event. This event is what we can see on the mini-map right now. A bunch of bombers come in and essentially level everything.
Confirmed. Channels open. Waiting.
As you can probably imagine, it's quite different from normal bombers that we've seen. And now our map has a different color.
Standing by. Go ahead. Ready for coordinates.
Who's in charge? In the name of Cain, reveal yourself!
Patrol craft, Venom craft ready for liftoff.
Brothers, you have been deceived. We have come to right an unholy injustice. Cain does not uphold the Brotherhood as he would have you believe. We serve the true cause of Nod. Surrender Temple Prime, or die!
Waiting. On patrol.
Establishing video uplink.
Commander, I don't know what the hell's going on, but it sure smells like Killian to me. Probably one of her little power plays. Well, guess what? She's in for a rude awakening. Because with my brains and your bombs, we're gonna put her little plot 6 feet under.
Incoming transmission. Nod traders from an unidentified source are attacking Temple Prime. They must be destroyed.
What is it?
And so now you're fighting Nod technology, which is kind of cool. It's definitely a unique twist. You don't usually fight against your own troops.
See anything?
Our base.
Now, there's a bit of an issue that I ran into, which is one that I will see, that we'll see in the second part of this same video.
Under attack.
I received a bunch of beam cannons, but I don't actually take note of that, and I don't really ever use them. Annoyingly as well, the bonus that AI has to repairing its structures is, frankly, far too powerful, and makes destroying even power plants too strong. I'm sure that they had some reason behind it, like we wanted to make sure that, you know, you couldn't just surprise a base and destroy it altogether in advance. But frankly, if that's how you built your mission and you're not going to give AI an attack force or whatever to clear an area first and then act as defenders, then that's a problem with your level design. It's a problem with your AI routines or whatever. But if it's nearly impossible to take out a construction yard with 20 Venoms, when under normal circumstances that wouldn't ever be the case, it's just a little unfair.
See anything? We have them on radar. They're not going anywhere. We got them.
And the reason I say all this, frankly, is because the Nod forces that appear on map get a lot of units really quickly. They seemingly have an infinite amount of money,
Closing in on them.
or at least a very high bank to work with, and it makes it just really hard to
Our base is under attack.
work through this.
Don't lose them.
So I'm already with barely any money, and you're having to deal with a lot of units that are on the map. They're cluttering what I can and cannot see. So there's a bunch of attack bikes that I would like to attack, but they just get obscured by everything that's going on.
Patrol firing.
And suddenly, my attack force of 20 Venoms, if not more, is maybe 8, 9, and I'm having a hard time just destroying a war factory. Now, all that said and done, I think that it makes most sense to destroy the southern base first rather than the northwest base. There's attacks from both sides, but I think the northwest prefers infantry. It will spawn some Scorpion tanks, and as we can see, flank tanks as well. But I think it's more of a mechanized force with infantry rather than just a purely tank army or purely Black Hand army. Both sides also have aircraft, so they'll also send that your way. Now, it could also be that because I destroyed the barracks so quickly, I just didn't really notice that Black Hands ever were something for me to worry about. But regardless, destroy one base first and then work towards the next one. I do think that in terms of defense and how things are positioned, it's better to focus on the southern base first. Just because once you get to this point, I have a ton of Avatar walkers, obviously. But at a certain point, it's just easier to destroy buildings without having to ever come across obelisks of light.
Standing by.
How's it looking?
Ready for coordinates. Getting in position.
On patrol. Right. Check. We're trained right on them. Yep, still heading there now.
Vertigo bombers standing by.
Keep on them.
Ready for coordinates.
Unit under attack.
Channels open. Vertigo bombers standing by. Clear the jump. Clear.
Check.
All right. Have a clear a path. Target.
What is it?
Under control.
See anything?
Confirm. Dead.
Again, once you get to a certain point where you're breaking down defenses and can at least reliably take out stuff like their harvesters or refinery, you don't have too much to worry about. It's really that initial bank of troops that they have that can just be overwhelming at times.
Unit promoted.
See anything?
It's also interesting to note that AI units that we've seen spawn, especially the infantry, just because it's so much more common to see them pop out, are all upgraded automatically. So they start with one level of veterancy, which just makes things even harder to work against as you play this mission.
Closing in on them.
Training. Unit promoted. Training.
Clear the junk. Go ahead.
Right.
Full power.
Looking clear.
Weapons prime.
I was worried that there might be some invisible objective or something I might have missed.
Control craft.
And frankly, it'd been so long since I played this that I was worried that maybe there was an extra level of like GDI troops would show up or something else. Thankfully, though, it's not really the case.
Objective complete. Mission accomplished.
Beam cannon ready for engagement.
That goes. Destroy that and I will have your heart. When mine own army conspires against me, it is time to leave behind the insufferable race of animals who call themselves man, to escape this god-forsaken rock. But now is the time to celebrate. The bait is placed, the trap set. GDI will dig its own grave. As you can see, preparations are already underway for Phase 3. We are taking only the essential icons necessary to build a great temple in the great beyond. By this time next week, you and I and the rest of our inner circle will begin our ascension. But our work here on Earth is not complete. Take your troops down to Australia. Salvage what you can of Killian's forces. They will be needed in the final mission. Go now, my son, and remember, have faith. Deliverance is at hand.
I actually don't know where the 67 building destroyed comes from.
This is it, Commander. The moment we've been waiting for. A chance to end this war once and for all. New intel says Kane is holed up inside Temple Prime. But the place is like a fortress, and they have some kind of shield technology protecting it. Look, it's going to be tough. But if you can somehow disable those ion disruptors, we might just be able to put the final nail in Nod's coffin. Make us proud, Commander.
That's right.
Incoming transmission.
Got it.
The ion disruption field generators are preventing a potential strike from GDI's ion cannon. They must be destroyed to defeat Nod's forces. Enemy units
Standing by.
GDI dogs near Sarajevo? Destroy them!
Unstoppable. Have at it.
And here we are with the GDI side of this mission. Now, I should point out that it's not technically the same mission, hence why I believe the 72 hours later, there's an event that happens, and this is right before it.
Yeah, we're ready.
New construction options.
Interestingly, there's no signs of the previous GDI base, and seemingly they were better equipped than we were, as there's going to be some technology that's missing.
What do you need? Trooper squad.
Where we setting this up?
As you can imagine, this one also requires a bit of precision.
Building.
There's at least one good reason for this,
Superiority.
which is that we're going to need a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money. And if we want to take out this prepared Temple Prime base, well, we're just going to need to have a lot of troops,
Construction complete.
and perhaps have to assault the base twice.
New construction options. New construction options. Building.
Now, one of the problems that we're going to face is similar to the Nod side of this mission. There's a lot of forces that you have to contend with. You're going to be under attack frequently by all sides, and you don't really have the same sort of doodads and defensive setup that you could do with the Nod side of things. If there was some sort of, some form of artillery or something to contend with, maybe if there was a Nod artillery piece, or if they managed to capture juggernauts, for example, there might be something a little more to worry about
Under attack.
in how you're in a basin rather than being on the high ground. But that's not the case, thankfully.
Take them out one by one.
Now, in a similar light to how the Nod mission was, when you start and you go up north, you'll see that there's a lot of infantry there, and that's sort of mirrored here.
Okay.
You're going to essentially receive only infantry attacks from the north, only vehicle attacks from the east, and the northwest opening kinda gets attacked once in a while. It's very rare, but when it does come, it is typically Avatar walkers and maybe some infantry, maybe a couple Scorpion tanks mixed in, sometimes flame tanks, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
Now, because I need a lot of money, that does mean that I need increased income, which you're only going to get from this eastern base as the first location. You could probably push up north first, but honestly, with the fact that the Nod forces will send a lot of vehicles your way, I just felt it was easier to set up a lot of anti-tank defenses on the eastern side, while also protecting a Tiberium field. It's also really important that you set up a rig as well if you're playing on harder difficulty. The reason for this is that your harvester will take damage. It doesn't matter how well you play, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. The harvester is just too stupid and will get attacked. The AI will prioritize them at times, which makes it a very huge pain in the ass to have to deal with. So if you don't have a battle rig in place, you have nothing that essentially is going to repair your harvesters. And unlike previous CNC games, your harvesters don't heal. Or at least, if they do, I haven't seen it. And if that's just me being unlucky with when I'm looking or paying attention, then it's very slow for what I've seen. Now, we've already seen that there's been some attacks from all sides. Unfortunately, the eastern base also will get attacked from the north, and as you can imagine, the theme of the day for Nod is having a lot of Black Hand Troopers. Now, thankfully, Mammoth tanks can still squish Black Hand Troopers, but it's not exactly a reliable way to attack the base. Or to defend your base, I should say. Now, to get around this, you do have to build a lot of anti-infantry defenses, which is another money drain. It requires you to buy more power plants, etc. One of the best ways to counter Black Hand Troopers is, unfortunately, snipers. And we've already seen that snipers aren't exactly invisible. With their best intentions, they will often appear on the map, and since infantry is groups, if they don't manage to take out the entire squad, they'll get killed. Simple as that. You also have to constantly pay attention to your defenses because, as we've seen, rocket soldiers do outrange technically watchtowers, but watchtowers can still shoot them. It has to be manually targeted, etc. Now, one thing to make my money worries or money woes even more egregious is the fact that you have to build an ion cannon. You could probably put this off and what have you, but even if you do, it doesn't change the fact that the EMP control center and the building for it is something like $13,000 all said and done. It might be closer to 10, but regardless, it's a lot of money.
At your disposal, Commander.
Especially when I'm constantly down one entire Tiberium field just because it's frequently being used. And you do need the like twin harvesters on each patch.
Enemy base sighted.
Certainly so for the eastern base because, well, without having two, you don't really have the damage mitigation from the various Nod attacks that will come your way.
Enemy units sighted.
Now, you can't cheese this mission as much as you might normally be able to. Flying a unit into the Nod base and then just zapping some stuff doesn't really work when they have something that prevents you from using the ion cannon. So the best bet, honestly, or best use out of the ion cannon from the get-go that I've noticed really is just using them on the obelisks of light that you can see strewn about the various entrances of the Nod of Temple Prime's base. They're the few buildings that don't get replaced if you manage to blow them up. And sadly, the amount of attacks is just constant. Keep in mind, Nod only has 2 Tiberium fields, as we've seen when we played on the Nod side of this map. And yet they just always have troops that are ready to attack. And while this is me griping a little bit about that, it doesn't change the fact that it makes defending a constant problem, because you will always have issues with essentially having the forces required to progress.
Of a sniper team. The Juggernaut can now be constructed at the War Factory. Our base is under...
Now, the first couple times that I'd gotten to this point and beyond, I didn't really notice that I had Juggernauts that are now in the bottom left of the corner of the map. It might have been better for the one time this game does a zoom cut. Instead of on my base to tell me I can build the ion cannon, maybe having it zoom on the 3 free Juggernauts I received would have been better. And yeah, by this point, the Nod base will begin building air units. Those air units will come over and just start bombing your main base. So if you don't have defenses against those, you will quickly find yourself out of power or out of some vital technology.
Harvester under attack. Harvester lost.
You also really need to have AA defenses, excuse me, because frankly speaking, there's one kind of easier way to have defenses, and we're kind of just going to abuse the fact that the high tier walkers will leave a husk behind. Unfortunately, husks do take a lot of damage, and apparently are also damaged just by explosions or exploding corpses of other vehicles in the nearby area. Now, the fact that we have rigs is something that you really should abuse. After all, you have a portable repair station, and Nod is perfectly capable and willing to provide you with avatars. Now, I've had plenty of my own engineers be destroyed, killed, whatever you want to call it, because they're just lazing about in my main base. A Venom will just fly in. It's not impervious, but can take some damage before it goes down, but not before it kills $1,500 worth of engineers. So instead of doing that, I have to build a barracks in my eastern base. It also makes it a little easier because there's less of a turnaround time. Now, unfortunately for me, the AI really hates you for having engineers. And they will chase them. Similar to harvesters, the AI just will absolutely blitz them. I really didn't want to have to deal with more Black Hand Troopers, so I decided to ion cannon some. Another defense against them is the Shockwave Artillery, which does a really good job against soft targets, and it acts as like an EMP against units that aren't. But the problem is that the Shockwave Artillery costs money, which again is not something you necessarily have a lot of access to. At a certain point, I'm going to have like 10, 12 Avatar Walkers at a decent HP because, again, you're just given... you have battle rigs, and those are more than capable of repairing enemy technology. Now, one of the secret objectives, or semi-secret objectives, I guess, secondary objectives, is to have a commando and have that commando destroy an Avatar Walker. This seems to be bugged. I don't know if it's because of a specific patch or if it's something else that I just never was able to grasp. But I just was not able to have my commando do anything productive. He can go in, he can blow up avatars, as we've seen. I can destroy the husks, but no matter what, it did not change the fact that I just wasn't given the objective. I believe there must have been something that changed it, that made it so that the commando's destruction ability, maybe in prior patches it was supposed to do full damage, and they changed it to half, and that makes it so that the trigger doesn't unlock. I don't really know the specifics, just because of the way that that this game is compared to prior ones. But that's the limitation, and so I'm basically going to have to cheat to unlock the intel. Although realistically, I get the intel from online anyways.
If you dare lay siege to this most holy of temples, know that I will personally hunt you down and slaughter you like the swine you are.
Now, having the Juggernauts is actually really important because they just have incredible range, and it allows you to kind of skip having to deal with some of these structures. I have a shit ton of zone troopers with me because I absolutely need to have their destructive power when taking out buildings. The ion cannon shields are just very tough, so they're particularly annoying to have to go through.
Our base is under attack.
You also have to be careful with how you have your settings for your units, because if you have them on like a hyper-aggressive mode, you end up having them destroy the secondary objective buildings that are critical. Also, it's very useful to keep an ion cannon around just for, you know, a strike like that.
We will never surrender, GDI! See you in hell!
Honestly, I probably could have bunched up my forces at this point, but being incredibly paranoid as to what is laying in wait, or any sort of tricks or secrets that might show up, really had me on edge.
What do you have? Yes, sir. Fire.
Barry. I got their code.
I don't think I remember just how many times I had to reload even my start to the attack of Temple Prime, because, well, as we saw, Black Hand Troopers, there's like 8 squads of those, and they're highly resistant to damage, even against mass zone troopers. And so I just constantly had to redo reload these attacks. It also just would happen that sometimes you'd get bad attack damage or rolls or whatever, and next thing you know, you find yourself with a flame tank that just happens to spray all your zone troopers. They all die from residual attacks and so on. Again, I keep trying with my commando to get something productive from him, but it's just not going to happen. The other, not really hidden, but the other benefit of shockwave artillery is the fact that the EMP does work on buildings as well. So having the ability to just drop some EMP onto an obelisk of light and essentially prevent it from doing anything for a short duration of time is also really, really strong.
Unit under attack. Unit lost.
Now, Nod does get a nuke, so, unpower their base and then destroy the Temple of Nod so they don't get to use that. I did try a couple things with the upgrade, the special powers that Nod gets, just to see what exactly they do, but sadly, Temple Prime cannot be destroyed except by an ion cannon, so we're just going to jump to that.
Well, Commander, I was wrong. You did a hell of a job capturing the temple, and your timing was impeccable. Nod was in the final stages of assembling a liquid Tiberium bomb, but we've managed to secure all the materials. We also have reports Kane and his inner circle have sealed themselves off in a sub-basement of the temple. Unfortunately, the place is impenetrable, so you'll have to sweat them out.
Tell me, General, our ASAT defenses, they're back online, are they not?
You're not suggesting the ion cannon?
No, General, I'm not suggesting it. I'm ordering it.
You realize we're talking about a facility where liquid Tiberium was being manufactured. An ion cannon blast could be disastrous to the region. Sandra, I need Dr. Giroud in Brazil. Dr. Giroud is our leading Tiberian scientist. Hopefully he can talk you out of this.
General, this is a Nod-controlled yellow zone. Whatever the repercussions of the ion strike may be, my concerns are not for the locals of this region. My concerns are for our public, the GDI populace who have been promised payback for the Philadelphia.
For God's sakes, man, don't make this about your political credibility.
Excuse me, General, but Dr. Giroud is missing, and it appears he's been captured by Nod.
Well, that settles it. Commander, I want you to end this once and for all.
Target. Ion cannon activated. Unit lost. Objective complete.
Are you rolling? Are you rolling? Okay. I'm outside Temple Prime, and the news here is terrible. Kane's plan has failed. We can see GDI soldiers stealing our Tiberium weapon, and just hours ago, there was a raid on the temple. We heard shots fired. So far, there has been no sign of Kane. We fear that he may still be trapped inside the temple. I'm getting word right now that GDI is... They're moving an ion cannon into position. If the Earth be transformed, let all those who believe in the power of Tiberium be transformed with it. Let the Earth be transformed.
Although Kane and much of his inner circle are believed to have been killed, the explosion also detonated a liquid Tiberium deposit hidden beneath the temple itself, producing deadly fallout and radiation levels over most of Eastern Europe. It's still unclear at this time if this was an accident or a final, desperate act of terrorism by Kane. So far, the only response from GDI has been this statement from Acting Director Boyle.
All those innocent lives lost. It's just unthinkable. But if there's a
silver lining to this terrible tragedy. It's the fact that Kane's reign of terror has finally ended. And for that, I think we should all be eternally grateful.
So, the Allied generals always seem to destroy churches and cause devastating worldwide society collapsing events. Don't pay attention to it.